as we know it now.
And very often the radio would work.
Because everybody knows that they're drunken sailors and they spend so much more money.
But it was working, which means they didn't have to do anything.
I think therein lies the advantage.
I'd like to call this to order at 7 o'clock. Bill, would you mind doing the Pledge of Allegiance for us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a presentation on measures Y and Z, the second quarterly construction update for 2013-14. So, Dr. Manning?
Mr. Slade.
Thank you,
Thomas.
Thank you, Dr. Manning. Season's greeting, President Stefan and esteemed board members, all the doctors in the house, Associated Cabinet, all the members in the audience. As usual, I'm proud and honored to be the spokesperson for our group in presenting you our quarterly construction update on Y and Z. And tonight we will bring Emily Kay from HMC up to report on the Phase 2A modernization projects.
Hello, everyone. So for HMC, I will be reporting on Towers and Riviera, which are both currently in back check with DSA. And the good news is we've had our first meeting with them yesterday. We are meeting with Access and Structure tomorrow and Thursday, and plan to have it stamped out at that time. Once the DSA approval is reached, then we'll go into the community construction meetings, and pending that approval, construction is planning for the end of the end of spring this coming year. Any questions on Towers and Riviera? Thank you very much. Oh, yes.
I guess it'd be actually Dr. Manning, you and I talked about it, the bathrooms that need to be certified, that got all resolved?
Well, at Riviera, we have a set of restrooms that showed in the plans that they were DSA approved as for ADA, and they are not. So we have some additional work that we're going to have to do at Riviera that in the initial planning stage was not a part of our estimate. So you'll hear more about that when we bring it back to you.
Okay.
I've got one question on Towers. What about our great water problem coming down the street? Have we dealt with that? Have we not dealt with that?
If you remember when we looked into it at the time, we were going to wait because it actually is a Redondo Beach problem, and they have it in their plans to at some time take care of it, coming down there and having a drainage. We did do some work right on the edge there in these plans, but it's limited.
Yeah, but water's not going to spill out into the school?
No.
Okay, good. That's great. No problem.
Because it used to, correct? And we fixed that.
Yes, it used to come down and come right onto it would go two ways. It would come down and go right on, be right there before the kindergarten, and come right through there, and then it would also go down farther down the street. And so we're doing some work right there so that it does not come across there just before the kindergarten.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions on Towers and Riviera?
Here's that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Emily, and Paul Westberg from Westberg and White to speak to his projects.
Good evening and a early Merry Christmas. And for those of us who went out and dressed appropriately for Mr. Wormers, we're here tonight in all our blazing glory. Hickory and Madrona. First part of the year, we should be completed with both of them. Things are moving along fine. I think we have, the first part of next month, we have a oversight committee meeting, of which we will be at Hickory to do an early walkthrough and to show the oversight committee what we're accomplishing. Any questions on these two projects? No?
Doing that.
North High School, moving along on schedule. Everything seems to be working out pretty well at the moment. Don't seem to have any catastrophes that we need to come to talk to you about. I think the front of the school is getting pretty close to being completed, and it looks a little different than it did a year ago.
It definitely does.
Thank you for your support on the additional funding to make it look good.
Not going to let North Torrance suffer.
No, it was a nod. It was one of those knowing or unknowing, but.
Yeah, that we
So-
pay for with Mrs. Reagan's.
So we're still, North Torrance, we're still doing fine. There's a lot of infrastructure, just basic infrastructure.
Yes,
down
and
there.
then we're headed for the most involved part is the gymnasium component to the rear. But so far, yeah, and the stadium. So that everything seems to be good. No surprises so far.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, I do have a question.
Yes.
Having just been over there and been reminded by people around there, we did not include the roof of the library in our planning.
Don Rondo can speak to that.
Yeah, that's correct. When it was re-inspected, they decided it only needed a minor coating on the top. We did have to do some patching where we put in new mechanical units, though.
Okay, because there were panels falling off it the day I was there, so I was just
Are you
curious
talking
about that.
Interior or exterior?
Exterior.
That must have been part of the demolition process. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. They were trying to patch it up and fix.
Oh,
Well,
you're
it has.
talking about the standing seam roof.
Okay,
The
with the
metal-
slat, like the metal
Yes.
things that, yeah.
That has all been repaired.
Oh, it has,
since
okay.
then,
Because
yes.
they were working
You're right.
heartily on it, and I was a little disappointed we hadn't included it in the original plan, because it clearly was in need of some attention.
Correct. Yes, and it did get taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
There's not.
Torrance High School. First of all, an update on the senior patio. Mr. Rondo has indicated we're shooting for the end of January to be completed. The project that would never end is getting close to ending. We're actually going to be seeing some real improvements probably over the holidays. Any questions on the senior patio? Torrance High overall.
What is the cost of the senior patio over and above what we?
About $1.2 million.
It's about $1 million too.
That's hard and soft. In other words, bid day costs plus all the support costs.
All right.
Us, inspectors, all the Balfour Beatty, all that kind of stuff. Yep. An unforeseen condition. Overall, in Torrance project, we're submitting next Friday to DSA. We have done a number of pre-reviews with DSA on this project. They know the project. They know it's coming in. And I think you have an item on the board tonight to ratify our approval to go forward on that on next Friday. Any questions in high school?
There was conversations of informal conversations about ADA and switchbacks down that center.
If everybody knows kind of that center walkway that meanders all the way down through there, certainly designed way back before ADA rules ruled. And so we've had to kind of do the best we can to meet all the federal and state requirements. And so that ends up being a little more costly than anybody ever envisioned, but we will achieve the goal. We actually met with the ADA people at DSA Los Angeles several months ago. Once we had it surveyed and came up with a solution to it, we got them to ratify it so that we know just the expansiveness of what it's going to take to get it If you're steeper than 1 and 12, you've got a problem. So, and of course, we have several more elevators we're putting in because you have all those satellited 2-story buildings that don't really have any connectors from one building to the next.
Can at some point send me a PDF to see what it's going to look like? Or-
Absolutely.
It's gonna have switchbacks.
Yeah.
I just curious what it's going to
Yeah,
look
it's hard to
certain
envision.
locations.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that too.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
If I'm at the bottom of that ramp, and that's the wrestling room, between the wrestling room and if I'm looking up the ramp, I can go left, and it's the science wing, or it's I can't remember, but you could head that way, and you can get to that parking lot. And the grade from the parking lot up to the library, right past the library, is less steep, right?
You know what? Butch Rowe here in the audience is intrinsically involved in this thing. He's the one that did all the reviews. So let me have him come to the podium and answer it.
Okay, I mean, I was just wondering if there's a...
Are you talking about the covered walkway or a ramp?
I'm talking about the covered walkway.
Yeah, and the covered walkway, I think Butch can talk.
Down the center, down the thing
Down the
that
very center.
that is definitely not ADA accessible.
The grade's too deep.
Right. But my thought, because I've dealt with that a number of times, and sometimes I would cut out to the parking lot area and then work my way up through that because it's a lot flatter. And then you get up past the library, I think, and then you can cut back in.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's another problem when you cut back in.
Correct.
But is it possible to do part of it that way to save some dollars, or is it possible to go through the back side of that school to get where you want to go, or is that...
Well, to begin with, we are not re-engineering the entire campus. No one has that much money. What we're doing is working with the concrete that's there, replacing the concrete that's broken or otherwise torn up due to trees, and adding a widening to the central walkway. We have two problems. We have the slope in the direction downhill, and we have what's called the cross slope, or the crown, that allows water to flow left and right as it's going downhill. Actually, our greatest problem is cross slope. The running slope we're able to deal with locally. It's the cross slope that's the biggest problem. It's counterintuitive when you stand there and look at it.
I know what you're talking about, because
So
when
we
you go up,
are
when you do switch back on
widening
hill,
the walk, the existing walk. We are widening the walk, and rather than its cross slope being as steep as the existing, it's much flatter, about 2% instead of 6 or 8%. So we're solving two things. We're solving the running distance from the English building to the library is very steep very quickly. There, we're actually adding another ramp between the two buildings. There's no easy way to accomplish the corner classroom of the English building and the front entry of the library. There's too much grade change, and no, we can't ask people to go back uphill and cross over towards the main building and go back down on the other side. So we're adding a ramp from the English building down to the level of the library. That's one local area of solving the running slope, but our biggest problem is actually cross slope, and that's being solved by widening, adding concrete to the side of the existing concrete, but at a very flat cross slope.
So if I'm going up a hill to the right side of it?
If you come out of the front door, thank you, of the library and turn uphill, you will now have, right there at the front door, there'll be a switchback ramp that will go up to the level of the library. That solves the running slope. If, however, you turned to your right, headed towards the main gym, there will be a new, wider walkway that, as you walk along, you don't feel like you're walking on the side of a hill. There's a lot of money going into accessibility at that campus. 2 elevators and a lot of concrete work.
Okay, that brings us up to The other question, and we've discovered some issues with plumbing and pipes and various things.
There was a survey done by a group called See Below. They actually put cameras down. The vast majority of the sanitary sewer, not the water pipes, the sanitary sewer and the storm sewer. And we've located a number of blockages, and essentially we're replacing, I don't want to say everything, but very close to replacing everything on campus.
And it can't be done with the lining kind of system, or it just has to be, go down there and it's at the point where you have to rip it out.
In general, no, it can't be done with lining. The sewers have been broken. They've been broken up by construction.
Oh, I see.
They've been broken up by earlier construction.
They're not lined up, they're not.
Trees, etc.
Is both sanitary and sewer?
Sanitary and storm sewer, yes, sir.
Both of them are in that state.
Sanitary is the one that you notice because the toilet room floods. The storm sewer you notice when it's raining because the grounds flood.
Okay.
So the ramp up from the library will take away green space. It's just green space now, or is it concrete now?
It is asphalt now.
It is asphalt, okay. And then to build up to reduce the angle of the wider walkway, you're just going to build up the cement, is the idea there?
We're going to add to the side
Yes.
of a very wide walkway. We're going to add a 4-foot, we're going to add a 4-foot section. You want to think of it as a sidewalk addition to an existing walk.
Okay.
And that, in some places, will reduce the amount of green space,
Yeah.
yes. Especially in front of the library.
Okay. Yeah, actually seeing this graphically would help. Thank you.
I'm back.
Well, I get that, then we just put it out there, we're $1 million plus into the seniors area, and we are now probably a little bit more over planned budget.
Well, no, let's go back. The senior patio, because of the direction that we've taken, we will end up about even on the senior patio because we're using all of our Prop 39 funds for Torrance High School. So because we use the Prop 39 funds, we'll offset. But we will be over our estimate. Obviously, we won't know how that will do whenever we bid out or lease back when it comes out of DSA. But we will be over based on our work right now for the reasons that were just discussed, along with additional roofing that had to be done there. So there's really 3 reasons why you'll see an overestimate. And anything else that might be found once we're over there that was not found in any of the engineering studies.
Like the entire boys' gym.
Well, they've been through the boys' gym.
That's right.
I think they can speak pretty well toward the boys' gym.
We're back to the equity situation and what was done at South, what's being done at North. The equity will be the same at Torrance High School. Different little designs, but same quality of improvement.
But you have at Torrance High, you have 2 shower locker facilities.
We're treating the big gym with a full investment and the smaller old middle school gym with a minor investment.
Well, no, I'm talking about not so much that is that behind the gym, against the parking lot, the part of it's closest to where we're sitting, there's a smaller locker room.
Okay.
That was typically the sports locker room. And then you had the old cruddy one that was upstairs. So the old cruddy one upstairs is the one that's always been frightening to me because it was frightening 40 years ago when I was there.
It's pretty
And it's going to look
Plan
like
to
South.
hand grenade it and rebuild.
Pretty much, yeah.
Hand grenade it. It's a new construction term to me. You former Marines.
Versus demo.
So, yeah, because I wouldn't think there'd be a whole lot you'd have to do the one that's behind, the one that's closest to us. That one looks like
Accessibility upgrades. Neither gym was designed with ADA. ADA did not exist. Each locker room has showers with a curb you must step over. We have to resolve that. Each shower room has toilet rooms that are far too small. The overview by the staff over the locker area, lack of accessible lockers, each area will be brought up to the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Thank you.
Is there soil condition around Torrance High like there is around North?
The pumping?
Yeah, the movement of the cracking and
not
the.
as bad. I think, in front of the theater or performing arts facility, it's a lot of crappy concrete, but it looks like that's where it used to be trees and planter beds and everything. And so we're going to be dealing with a lot of that.
That's really what's created a lot of problems at Torrance High School are the trees. And there probably are as many as 40 trees that need to come out of there that are currently doing damage.
All those big old pine trees.
Well, we've got, was it Podocarpus and others, Butch? The ones that used to be small next to the Performing Arts Building, now that are enormous, and they're still only about a foot away from the wall. And of course, all the leaves that fall on the roof that Phil's got to deal with all the time. So we have had serious reviews by our landscape architects of looking at the trees that we think probably should be removed and other trees to be replaced in more appropriate locations. So that's also going to take place.
So no one should be surprised when this project runs over original estimates.
I don't think so. I think we're saying that up front.
Right.
That I do think, though, that when you look at this project, you're going to see more trenching, open trenches, getting down, replacing pipes than you've seen at any of our other sites. Even the work that was done at Magruder will pale in comparison to what will be done at Torrance High.
And as you said earlier, we have two choices: one, to leave it alone and ignore it, or walk away with it fixed.
Right, and just a comment too. I don't think we can leave it alone. But the other piece to it is we cannot leave ADA alone. As you know, we have to meet ADA compliance before we do anything else on the campus, and DSA has worked with us because that was a major issue with the district and DSA on some ADA compliance that was not done in the past. So they have worked with us through our entire building program, so that all has to be met in this project. But I don't believe we would ever want to leave those pipes in the condition they are, because in the end, the only thing that would happen is at some point you'll have to go back and break up all the concrete. In some conditions, it'll be new concrete you'd be breaking up to go back to get to those pipes. So I think it would be really bad business, if you would, for us to leave those in the condition that they're in, or in fact to leave some of the roofs that are going to be replaced in the condition that they're in right now.
And as I might add, you remember the buildings we're looking at on the screen date back to 1917. So we're talking about pipes that have been on the ground for almost 90 years. And they ain't going to get any better. Any other questions?
More holes in pipe. Okay.
Are we using steel windows in our work there?
Are we using what, Michael?
Steel windows.
Oh.
I think we're actually going to use a combination of steel and also the other types of windows that we've used. So it will be actually a combination there.
Okay, I was just curious. I know that you pointed out the huge cost savings when we were at North, so.
Exactly. So, but I think, we have to be careful with those buildings that are on the National Registry and what we do exterior-wise with those, even down to the paint. I mean, just so you have an idea, Paul and Butch and our historical architect, Mr. Chattel, are down now into the colors of grout lines on the senior patio area. So on those historical buildings, it gets down into that kind of minute detail and how that is done. So we have to be very careful on that.
And last Thursday we had our community meeting.
Yes.
And of which the Historical Society came out and seem to be quite satisfied to date as to how we're approaching this.
So
We've
we'll
all
lose those,
learned a lot.
so we're gonna lose those orange tiles in the entryway?
Didn't know that yet.
Yet to be decided.
Look at me smile.
But
when I say
I
that.
wanna know what's
if
underneath
I
of it.
have anything to do with
talking
it,
about
the
the
answer
pillars?
would be
Yes.
yes.
Thank
What
you.
we call the May brick. Excellent.
You need someone to come in and vandalize it on the weekend, let me know.
Bring your steel rebars.
I've got the stick right here to pound on.
All right, thank you
We
very
didn't
much.
really mean that, folks.
I'm trying to think.
Just back to a question Mrs. Reagan's asked, though, about expansive soil. My understanding is it is not at Torrance High like it is at North, but there was a picture previously, and that's the matrix just showing what has been done. But there was a picture up there at North, Mrs. Reagan's, and you could see in that picture that they took where that there was, in that area, if you remember, it could be as much as a foot where the sidewalk had pulled away from the major building.
Yes,
And you
yes.
can see in that picture where it's no longer pulling away from that building with the pieces that Paul's firm has engineered at North. So all that's being cleaned up also at North High School. And that is also, again, one that is not easy to do because of the way they have to go in and engineer the rebar to connect it actually to the building so that that won't again slide and we'll be left with, potentially almost 12 inches between a sidewalk and a building.
And the trees are still tied up. It'll still be that way for a while?
Mr. Rondo?
They should be untied shortly.
Okay.
They're just building up
Angst.
Very good, thank you.
Actually, I have a question for Dr. Mannon. Are we to Dr. Mannon's picture yet?
No, we're not. We're
No?
at a big.
Oh, well,
That's just the matrix. We can move on. That's the matrix where we have the school sign off that they're doing that.
All right.
okay.
So we're at
And
Dr.
the
Manning,
next
question?
slide, prior to Dr. Mannon's question, actually speaks to Phase 3. We had a principal kickoff meeting last Thursday for Dr. Mannon and all the principals of the schools that are listed on the slide, and we'll be moving forward into design on 6 of the 7 that are listed, beginning in February, some as late as April, and we'll start design on West High School in January of 2015. Okay. Any questions on that
So
slide?
we'll be busy again with 7 schools at a time.
Wow. 5 of the 7 are North End.
Yes, they are.
Okay. Oh, there's Dr.
Question.
Mannon.
There he is.
Yeah, actually, just to reassure the folks in the audience, although we're talking about Torrance High costing more than we anticipated, that we are not taking money away from other projects, that we will make sure that there's the full regimen of money for each project as they come online, correct?
Correct. I think what you really should think about is that essentially we've spent the contingency allocated at that point as we go into the project. But there is additional contingency, as you know, and a final contingency that's laid out only for the last 8 schools.
But because Torrance High cost more does not mean we're not going to get to the schools that are at the end of our
At this
set of
point in time,
schools.
that's correct. Did you want to say something, Dr. Stable?
Sure. One thing in reference to the patio, we have started the process to apply for our hardship funds, similar to the hardship funds that we received for Hull Middle School, and it has to do with the seismic issue there, and that's one of the reasons you can get hardship funds. So we have applied for it. Hopefully,
Although it's probably a long shot.
yeah,
But Dr. Stabler's working on it.
yeah, we have applied for hardship funds, which could help offset this deficit.
Are there any funds available for the historical preservation piece? that
There
could help
are
supplement that?
none.
There are none. I asked school facility consultants when I was up there for one of those hearings. I went over and visited with them and asked if there were any other funds, because under the hardship, because we're being made to do it, and the answer was no.
And Mr. Chattel has made it very clear there are not Fed funds available or state funds for that purpose, although you still have to meet all the requirements.
So you must meet the requirements, and it will cost you more, but, yeah.
And considerably more, quite frankly.
Yeah, we're used to those, aren't we? Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for gentlemen, or Dr. Manning, ladies?
Thank you all. Have a happy and safe holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you, guys.
Tom. You too.
Okay. You're down to discussion action.
Right. Good.
We just did the presentation.
No, I
and
understand.
something.
Is everyone okay? All right, so we're on discussion action item approval to submit plans to the Division of State Architects for Torrance High School Modernization Project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions, any comments?
We thought we'd just take care of this item in terms of presentation with the larger presentation. Certainly, if you have any questions, feel free. You know, you're all veterans now. You know that once we submit the DSA, we lose control of the project. Most of the time, DSA has been able to get them out in 6-8 months. But as you know, we've had some schools that were 18 months, almost to 2 years. So, you know, once submittal happens next week, we can't really tell you when it will be coming out, but when it does, we'll be bringing it back to you again so that we can move forward then with the actual construction.
The palm trees will be open by then.
Oh, they will be open by then at North High School.
All right, well, I'm not hearing no questions or comments. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And I think we're ready for adjournment, correct? All right.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll call it 7:30 on the nose. All right, gentlemen, ladies, thank you very much.
I'm sorry I was late.